Would you guys eat an ant from the ground?
Yes.
Yeah, I think I would too.
I wouldn't want to, but I think that in the competitive spirit, I would. Welcome to Baggage Claim, an unofficial Jetlag the Game companion podcast. We're continuing our off-season tradition of rewatching past seasons while waiting for the next one. Today, we're unpacking episode 2 of season 2, Circumnavigation. I'm Kira.
I'm Jaya.
And I'm Casey.
Jaya, have you ever ridden in a go-kart?
I went go-karting with some of my friends, at the beginning of college-ish. I lost terribly, and it was also before I had gotten my driver's license, so I like to think I would be better at it now.
Probably true. Casey, what about you? And do you think you could build one?
I have high hopes that I would be able to build a go-kart. I think my, physics engineering skills would come in handy. But I have driven a go-kart, and I also have driven something even more important than a go-kart, which is the Lego cars at Legoland.
I'm so glad you're bringing this up. I have also ridden a go-kart one time, and it was at an elementary school birthday party, and most of what I remember is that you got to wear those slick, head, they're like a head sock where it covers your whole head except not your eyes.
Like a balaclava?
I loved it. I think I wore it.
Weird.
I remember doing fashion shows in our house with me just wearing the go-kart balaclava.
That's so weird,
I thought that it was the
Kira.
peak of fashion.
No.
What? Kira, that's so funny.
Well, let's jump into the recap. We start this episode with both teams en route to Europe, with Ben and Adam flying from New York to Milan, while Sam and Joseph go from Cancun to Amsterdam. Ben and Adam's grand plan to book a flight straight to Thailand falls through right as they're boarding the plane, leaving them 8 hours on the plane to figure out what to do next. Sam and Joseph are the first to arrive in Europe, and they start the day by visiting Amsterdam's top 5 attractions, taking identical, awkward selfies at each location.
I loved their awkward selfies.
What I really appreciated was Sam really rushing them. He was like,
Yeah,
I want to take the photo.
Yeah.
Every second counts. Meanwhile, after eating a special airplane dinner for 2 special boys, Adam and Ben arrive in Milan and decide to build a go-kart to earn enough money to fly to Singapore later that day. They brush up on their Italian construction terms, spray paint an exuberant Italian flag, and for some reason decide to sit in a bucket instead of flipping it over and sitting on the bucket.
That was one of my main notes about this challenge.
After 2 attempts, inflicting major damage on the go-kart and minor damage on Ben, they succeeded the challenge and earned $1,200. Sam and Joseph briefly visit the U.S. consulate for some more quick cash and then are struck with some logistical challenges. They consider going to Budapest, but are 3 minutes late on their booking, so they instead opt to spend so long in a park until they decide that they have to grind challenges in Amsterdam until they can afford a flight to Singapore later that night.
Oof.
Ben and Adam are only $10 away from booking their flight to Singapore, so they go on an adorable little piggyback run around a park, and then they're off to the airport. To conclude our recap, I've come up with a title to highlight the most important moment of the episode. In terms of the season as a whole, this is really our Europe episode, and so I've decided to come up with a title that is just a little European holiday. Do either of you have any suggestions?
I have one suggestion based on a recurring phrase that pops up in this episode. Mamma mia.
No.
That's really funny. Well, with that, I will pass things over to Casey.
Thanks, Kira. Welcome back to the Strat Chat, our segment where we break down the strategy and gameplay of the episode. In this episode, both teams do multiple challenges without going to a new location, which introduces a new rule of this game. If a team completes multiple challenges in the same 300-mile radius, the second challenge earns half of its original value, and any subsequent challenges earn 1/4 of their original value. This is a tough trade-off, especially when teams are trying to grind challenges in order to afford a certain flight. But I think the teams approached this slightly differently. Sam and Joseph did a second challenge because it was convenient, while Ben and Adam picked an easy challenge at random to make up the difference for their ticket. What do you think of the strategies here?
I think it's really interesting what's going on here, and I'm sort of conflicted about it. I think that a big reason why Sam and Joseph did their second challenge of just going to the US consulate before they even had a plan was just because they were thinking, well, we have the time, so we should be using all of our time in order to make as much money as possible. Which I think is interesting because you make less money for subsequent challenges. So yes, every challenge you do is going to make you some amount of money, but it's not necessarily always the right decision to grind in one place, because then you're maybe wasting time, or you're not using your time as efficiently as if you're able to do those same challenges in a new location.
Yeah, I think, like, the vibe that I got that was very different about these two is that Ben and Adam just needed $10 for the flight that they knew they wanted, and they were going for it, and so they were like, let's just do whatever we possibly can to do that. Versus Joseph and Sam, they just seemed a little more aimless. And I think their time could have possibly been spent better, like sitting down and doing their planning a bit earlier, rather than doing that challenge because it was convenient. Because they can still just go back to the US consulate after doing their planning if they realize they need another $250. But I don't think it's usually a good idea just to do a challenge because you can.
But then, on the other hand, another thought that I'm having is that it does seem kind of stressful for Ben and Adam to then be going to a new place with such a small balance.
$1.26.
Because now there's a fear that they're going to strand themselves. And so maybe on the other hand, maybe it does make sense to try to do as many challenges as possible in every location that you get to, because then you're just giving yourself a bigger safety blanket. So I am really conflicted here, and I don't know. Like, even seeing how the season plays out, I think that there's not one clear, better option.
I agree. I think the balance to me would be pick a route and then just do challenges.
Yes, I mean, I do agree with that.
Either until you have that money, or just because you have extra time until your chosen plane takes off. Where I think, I don't know, just doing random challenges in a place even to a slightly diminished value, that makes sense. I agree with you. But I do wish they had really thought about their route and potentially bought a ticket if they were able to financially before doing that.
It's especially painful to see that if they had planned earlier, because they were only 3 minutes off from buying their ticket to Budapest, which would have then let them go to Dubai. We have the benefit of hindsight to see, okay, you should always be planning early, because then you're leaving your options open. But with that hindsight, it does make sense to plan first.
Well, and speaking of the planning aspect, doing a challenge that's worth less money overall after a more expensive challenge might net them more money than the opposite order. Should they be considering all possible challenges they want to complete in one location before starting their first one to optimize that order?
Yes, and I was thinking so much about this during the episode of, if you're only going to do one $1,200 challenge in a place, you gotta do that first. And the fact that they don't seem to really be thinking about it is, I don't know, it's making me afraid. Because what if they do a $400 challenge for full value, and then they only do a $1,200 challenge for like a quarter of its value? They're losing $900 on that, and that is a huge amount to be losing of doing your big challenge for a percentage of the value.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I also think that it's sort of the metaphor of like, put your big stones in the jar first and then pour the sand on top of it. Where it's like the bigger investment in time and effort is going to be the challenge that gets you the most money. And so if you have, 4 hours or 6 hours or 8 hours in a location and you want to make a lot of money, your best bang for your buck is going to be doing the most expensive or, the most valuable challenge first, because then you can use up whatever time you need to guarantee that you'll get that done, make the most amount of money, and then you might end up in a situation like Adam and Ben, where they only needed $10 other. Whereas if they were trying to string together a series of smaller challenges in order to make that same amount of money, if they get to the end and they're like, oh, we still have $10 left, there are fewer options, and also that's not going to be a time when you want to do a really expensive challenge, because then you're not making that much off of it.
I do agree with that. And I think that it's interesting because looking back, I'm almost curious about whether they thought that the routes would be stringing together more cheaper, shorter flights and doing challenges in between them than what actually ended up happening. What circumstances would make it a better idea to actually travel 300 miles somewhere else to keep doing challenges?
I think geographically this would have been the most feasible in Europe.
Yeah.
They could have hopped on a high-speed train, gone 300 miles to a different city, and when everything is close together and there's decently good variety in the options of how to get places, I think Europe would have been the best place to do this, and I think it could have actually really made a lot of sense for Joseph and Sam to go 300 miles from Amsterdam and potentially fly out of a different airport.
Yeah, and it definitely makes me think about how much more optimal their Budapest-Dubai plan would have been. Yeah. Because, as we've been saying, like, there are lots of really good budget airlines within Europe. So they could have taken, Ryanair or Jet2 or, lots of budget airlines that seemed like they were running. So it seems like it would have been really optimal to take a relatively cheap flight just to get somewhere else so they can start making more money. Because, like, they're making $50 a piece. Like, it's not...
Yeah.
And split between two people, that's enough for a $25 plane ticket. It's just, they're not making that much money. And so the fact that they know that they need to book multiple flights in advance, especially as they get into the Asia, Australia region where you need to book onward travel, they know that they're going to need a huge amount of money at once. And so it does feel like it would make sense for them to go 300 miles away, even if it's a suboptimal flight out of there, just to get more money.
I think I mostly agree. But of course, it really depends on how expensive that first shorter flight would be and how much more optimal that second flight would be. I think it probably is possible that there's a flight that has a long enough layover in between that you could make enough money to get to that next location. But I think that it's probably hard to determine that when you're sitting there looking at flights, looking at connections. So I do think that I would argue traveling 300 miles somewhere else is probably more of a last-ditch scenario where you have enough money to get on, like, one more plane, and then you could start making money again at the full rate.
Yeah. And also, like, as I'm saying this, I'm thinking back to, times when I've tried to plan my own travel and I've been like, well, I have this destination in mind. I could book a flight directly there, or I can book a flight close by and then take a train and then a bus and then a second. And, like, it ends up being a logistical nightmare that takes way more time and ends up being basically the same price. And so it does make sense that, like, yes, in theory, taking a quick flight or a train somewhere else would let them make more money, but you're also sinking money and time into that. And it's a logistical nightmare. And so the fact that they haven't really slept in 2 days and, there's the adrenaline of the challenge of it all, it makes sense that they want to bank on these long haul flights just because it's fewer things to be thinking about.
Well, there will be more discussion of challenges and strategies there in our next discussion, I'm sure. But for now, I will pass things over to Kira.
Thanks, Casey. Welcome back to a segment we like to call Challengers, where we explore alternate ideas for how to complete a certain challenge. We saw two main pieces to the strategy in this episode. Both teams needed to figure out where they were going next, and they needed to decide how they were going to make enough money to fly there. So I'm going to send both of you the full list of available challenges, and I want to hear what challenges you would have done in Amsterdam and Milan. What makes certain challenges more appealing than others in these two places? Are you going to optimize for making the most money, or trying to steal challenges from the other team, or doing challenges that are especially suited to your location, or intentionally saving other challenges for later in the game? I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
I think that it's a pretty risky scenario to bank on a challenge still being available later in the game when you think that you'll be in a prime location. And I know that is definitely with some hindsight looking back, but I think that it's pretty tricky to plan an itinerary based around a challenge that the other team could have full access to completing before you. So that being said, I think that I would definitely take more of an approach of what challenges are feasible in my location. I also don't know about trying to steal challenges from the other team, because that's also pretty predicated on knowing where they are or where you think they're headed. And that's, in this kind of game, I think that's really putting a lot more energy into something that doesn't really have a huge bearing on your ability to do something.
Yeah.
In something like Battle for America or Schengen Showdown, when you're stealing from the other team, I think that makes more sense of trying to or Arctic Escape, trying to nab a challenge so that the other team can't get it, even if you don't feel like you're going to use the result of that. But here, as we see, this is an early season. There's not a ton of team interaction between the two teams. I think I would focus mostly on just what is accessible in the area I'm in. And honestly, that dollar amount, looking for those more valuable challenges, because you will have that money throughout the entire game, even if you don't spend it all on a ticket.
Yeah, I agree. I think especially not knowing where the team is at any given point, so you can only guess what challenges might be optimal with pretty much no basis besides where they should be in the world-ish around that time. And with all of the challenges just awarding money and not awarding specific tickets like an Arctic Escape, you really just can't bank on the other team doing anything at all. And so saving a challenge for later in the game is very, very risky. But in the same way, doing a challenge just so the other team can't do it, even if it wouldn't be optimal for you, I think is also risky. And you should just do something that's easier for you to do in your location. So with that said, I think Amsterdam and Milan, I mean, honestly, go-kart I think is overvalued. I'm like, I could do that. That would be easy. That would be a $1,200 gimme. And I think that's just me being too confident in my arts and crafts skills.
Well, it is interesting. That's the only really big ticket item that you can do anywhere. So the other ones that are $1,200 are win a game of paintball and go bungee jumping. And then there's also $1,000 for ride 3 miles on roller coasters. Those are all challenges where you have to be at a specific kind of place. Like you need to go to an amusement park. You need to go to a bungee jumping place. Whereas for Build a Go-Kart, you just need access to a hardware store. And so it does feel like that's the most accessible of the really good challenges.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think Build a Go-Kart would absolutely be my go-to.
Eat at a Michelin-starred restaurant feels like they could have done that in Amsterdam instead of waiting until Singapore.
Oh, yeah.
It's wild that eat a bug cannot be a bug you found in the wild. That just feels like you gotta just grab a bug and eat it.
Can I just pick up an ant? Like, I feel like it should be acceptable to go anteater mode.
Why? Where are you seeking out that it's prepared by a chef? You could just eat it.
I bet they're thinking that they're going to get street food.
Yeah.
Where you get
street food bugs.
Oh, or a food stand. I only saw chef or restaurant, and I was like, that feels pretty inaccessible.
That's pretty challenging.
Yeah. Like, finding a restaurant bug is going to be probably harder than finding, like, crickets at a side-of-the-road stand.
Yeah.
Would you count if you go into, like, a gas station and they have, like, chocolate-covered crickets?
I think yes. I think that would count. I think what this is really saying is don't find something in the grass. Like, find something that's designed to be eaten.
Would you guys eat an ant from the ground?
From the grass? Yes.
Yeah, I think I would too.
I wouldn't want to, but I think that in the competitive spirit, I would. But not on the reg.
Here's the thing, and I know this about myself. There are a lot of things that I don't want to do. And the second that you're like, it's a competition, you win something, I don't want to do it, you have to, I'm doing it instantly.
Yeah.
I've already eaten the bug. Like,
I've eaten the bug and then read the rules and realized that I need to go find a bug that's supposed to be eaten.
There is nothing that gets me less anxious and more locked in than someone else being like, we have to do this and I can't do it. I'm like...
Yeah.
There's a kind of beautiful camaraderie
it.
where it's like, I will be the team in this moment.
Like, I will carry this challenge.
Yes.
I will eat the bug.
I almost ate a bug this morning when I was walking to yoga, and a spotted lanternfly, or whatever they're called, flew into my nostril, bounced off my nostril and onto my mouth, and I was like, this is the worst thing to ever happen.
I've had 2 bugs this week be in my eye because I blink them into my eye while I'm biking, and I don't care for that.
Biking in the summer is so dangerous. You're gonna get bugs.
Literally. I don't like it.
You're gonna get bugs.
You're gonna get bugs.
I want that on that, like, that American propaganda poster. Like, I need you to get bugs.
The Uncle Sam
you can get bugs.
Only you can get bugs. No, so not funny. Uncle Sam. Oh, no, am I thinking Smokey the Bear?
You're thinking of Smokey the Bear.
You're saying Uncle Sam in the Smokey the Bear voice.
What do you mean the Smokey the Bear voice?
Well, you know how bears sound? They go roar.
You can stop the wildfire. But you're doing
Only you can get bugs.
But you're doing the Uncle Sam.
We have to
Uncle
move
Sam
on.
face.
We simply have to move on.
Well, I do think all of that is really interesting. And with I was killing it, and then you made it awkward.
That's so
I'm
funny.
sorry.
That's so funny to say after like 6 minutes of just random off-topic discussion.
Well, with that discussion, I think I'll pass things over to Jaya for a little game.
Thanks, Kira. In this episode, we saw one of my all-time favorite challenges and the realization that I think I just really like the arts and crafts challenges. Badam make a go-kart. So I'm here today to quiz you about self-propelled vehicles. Every July in Akron, Ohio, is what has been proclaimed the greatest amateur racing event in the world, sometimes with more people at it than F1 races, at least in the 1940s. The Soapbox Derby. The name Soapbox Derby comes from the materials that kids would use to build little carts in the 1920s and 30s, which were crates that soaps came in, but these days I think of them as apple crates, and any type of wheels. The format of the race has stayed fundamentally the same since the 30s, with a bunch of 7 to 20-year-olds building a little car and racing down a 1 to 2,000 foot hill. For context, these kids are zooming. By the bottom of the hill, they're going in the 30s of miles per hour, or about 50 kilometers an hour, in a completely self-propelled gravity racer, or just a crate with wheels. Now, despite the format remaining the same, a lot of rules of the race have changed over the years. So for today's game, I'm going to tell you some rule changes from the United States All-American Soapbox Derby, and you have to decide, 1, is this a real rule change? And 2, what year was it implemented? They're going to be anywhere between mid-1930s, when the racing started, and about 2000.
Whoa, okay.
I'm calling it Soapbox Rule, or NopeBox Fool, because we're the NopeBox Fools if we get them wrong.
I love it. This is so much fun. I'm excited.
In what year were bicycle wheels prohibited?
I think this is a real rule, and I think it was in the year 1952.
I agree. I think it's a real rule, and I feel like... Well, no, wait, why would it be a real rule? Bike wheels have to be allowed.
No, I bet they're not allowed because they want it to be scrappier.
I'm gonna say that it is allowed.
Kira, you are correct. This is a real rule, but you were off by quite a few years. This was 1936.
Whoa, so really early.
Early rule.
Members from the national bobsleigh or bobsledding teams were prohibited from competing.
I feel like this is a rule also. It feels like just kind of stinky enough to be a rule.
It is funny because this is only for 7 to 20-year-olds, and I don't know the average age of bobsledders, but it does feel like there's not going to be a whole lot of 8-year-old national competitors. I also think this is real, and I think it's later. I bet that it's around the time of an Olympic Games, but those happen all the time. I'm going to say it was like in the 70s.
I'll say it was also in the 30s.
I've bamboozled you both. I made this up.
Whoa!
Yeah,
I would have believed it.
It makes sense that it's not
This
a
was
real rule.
based on the fact that Jamaica's bobsledding team started when some American businessmen saw their pushcart derby, which is basically the same as a soapbox derby.
Yes,
Whoa.
of course.
It was sponsored by the, community relations person of a mining company in Jamaica also, which I thought was fascinating. Use of aluminum and sheet metal prohibited.
This feels like a dangerous thing.
So are we saying they could only use
Like wood and stuff.
Wood and plastic.
Or tin. Or steel.
Cardboard. No, aluminum and
Gold?
other metal.
Oh, I
Sheet
didn't...
metal, specifically.
Sheet metal.
So, like, they're not prohibiting using steel screws,
Got it.
but they're prohibiting making a steel tube.
I mean, I feel like this makes sense as a rule. My instinct is that it is a later rule about safety. So I'm gonna say, like, the 90s.
I also think it's real, but I'm gonna say, like, the 60s.
Kira, it was 1962!
Whoa!
Whoa. They cared about safety way earlier than I thought they did.
Use of power tools to construct your car prohibited, and then use of power tools to construct your car permitted after much protest.
So my initial thought is that this isn't a rule, but the fact that it's a double is confusing to me.
I'm saying this didn't happen.
My gut says that this didn't happen.
I got you! It was 1949 and 1950.
Oh, so soon after.
They prohibited power tools. People put up such a stink about it that the next year they were allowed again.
You want children to be riding at 30 miles per hour on a go-kart they made using a handheld screwdriver?
They are going Badham mode.
They are going Badham mode.
Badham's cart was just like 1949. The second double we've got is magnets allowed, and then magnets banned.
Now, where are they using those magnets?
To hold it together. That's
That feels
beautiful.
not
That is a
secure.
strong
That's
magnet.
beautiful. I'm envisioning like an MRI magnet. Something so dangerously
Okay,
strong.
I love that.
I'm gonna say that this is also not real, mostly because the fact that the first rule is magnets allowed, it feels weird to me that you need to have an official rule on record saying this thing is allowed if there wasn't an earlier rule that's like this isn't, like there would be no reason to talk about magnets until you're banning them.
Never said there wasn't reason to talk about magnets.
Famously, magnets were only invented in 1972. So I'm going to say this is a rule and it's the 1970s.
Once again, Kira, I made it up.
Woohoo!
But this is based in a cheating scandal in the 1970s.
I sensed something.
Let me tell you about this cheating scandal just briefly. So 14-year-old Jimmy Gronin, world champion, was stripped of his title when they found out that he had cheated. But the way that he cheated was like, that's an intro electromagnetism question from a test. Like, he put an electromagnet in the nose of his car with wires connecting it to a battery, and when he leaned his helmet against a switch, it charged the magnet, making the nose of the car get magneted to the steel plate of the starting gates. And then when the gates swung open, his car got magnet pulled forwards, boosting him off the start line.
And
they found out because he was winning by a lot more than people usually win by. And as the battery got drained over the course of the heats, he got progressively slower and slower when usually racers get faster and faster over the heats as they get better at the course.
That's so cool.
Isn't that so fun?
Wow.
Like,
Yeah.
he completed a circuit by leaning his helmet against a switch. Sick.
That's really cool.
When was the use of lead anywhere in your vehicle prohibited?
I'm gonna go rogue on this one and say that it has never officially been banned.
When would they have determined that lead was bad for kids?
Isn't that really late? Like, wouldn't our parents' generation still have had lead in paint?
I'll say 80s.
Casey, you're getting 1 point because this is true, but it was surprisingly quite a bit earlier than that. It was 1959.
Nice.
Oh. So in the era of caring about children.
Good for them.
Nice.
And finally, when did they decree that the driver's eyes must be above the front cowling when racing? So they must be able to see over the hood of their car.
That's so scary.
I'm saying that's not a rule. I'm envisioning them fully locked in, no sight in front of them.
I'm gonna say that is a rule, and I'm gonna say, like, the 30s.
Kira, you've got 1 point. It was 1961.
That's
Okay, I was
so
pretty
funny.
off.
I love that a lot of these rules are like, guys, just be cool about it. Just be normal about it.
So many of these rules are just, guys, be normal.
Be normal.
Stop cheating with magnets.
That's so funny.
Well, great job, Kira. You have won with 5 to Casey's 2.
Yay.
Okay, we don't need to give exact numbers. There's no need for that.
And with that, I will pass it to you for our Rosebud and Thorn.
Thanks, Jaya. We're going to get into our Rose, Thorn, Bloom, where our bloom is something that appears in this episode that then comes up later in a beautiful way in a future season. So, Casey, let's start with you.
My rose, kind of kicking off with some more go-kart conversation, is just really such a fun challenge. Especially, it really made me laugh when Ben would immediately go down backwards, which, when I was watching, really reminded me, it was kind of giving the Boston cop slide. Like,
So funny.
he's just, rattling around on there, and that really was cracking me up. My thorn is that I do think these early seasons really leave Sam doing a lot of the heavy lifting for his team by himself, because they were just throwing the guest in with no context, which is kind of...
Right.
It's kind of funny, but I also do think that it's tough. It feels like sometimes the balance of that team is not quite there. That being said, my bloom for this episode is watching Sam really struggling to research flights. Feels like the exact opposite of later on in Arctic Escape, teaming up with Michelle and her beautiful spreadsheet of all of the flights they could possibly encounter each day. So that was a cool moment.
That was magnificent.
That's so beautiful. Jaya, what about you?
My rose is not about the episode. It's that at Bill Hurt on Bluesky drew pictures of all of us as hybrid creatures, and I'm still losing my mind over it. I think it's so cute. I love our little faces in that, and I'm obsessed.
I'm so obsessed. Really captured my horns perfectly.
Exactly. That's exactly what I look like.
You don't know what we look like, but it is uncanny.
It's canon now. Sorry.
You bodied it. My thorn is that Ben stole my Chemical Romance outfit. I fully was planning on wearing those exact lime green pants, red shoes, and a black shirt to the My Chemical Romance concert tomorrow in New Jersey, and now I'm gonna be going there being like, this is so Ben Doyle core, and I'm mad about it. My bloom was about them making their cart and then learning how to make carts better with, for example, wheels that don't swivel in Australia. I thought that was so beautiful when it came up again later.
I agree. My rose was also about the go-kart challenge. I just thought it was such a great challenge, and I loved the attention to detail on their spray painting, and then the total inattention to detail when they were making their flimsy little handlebars.
Yeah.
I just thought it was a great challenge. My thorn was specifically the moment where Sam is absolutely galaxy brain astral projecting, trying to manifest a plan for a flight, and Joseph so earnestly asks, should I keep recording? That moment just really was like a punch in the gut. It was a tough moment. And then my bloom is that we saw Sam is really good at identifying where buildings are without using maps. We saw that with the U.S. consulate here. And I feel like that comes up in future seasons also, especially in Tag, when all 3 players have to identify different buildings. And so it's cool to see that skill start to pop up even in these early seasons. And with that, thank you for rating at Baggage Claim. Let us know your thoughts on socials at baggageclaimpod or over email, which is in the episode description. If you're enjoying the show, please leave a comment or give us a follow. We'll see you next week as we continue our off-season coverage at the Horse and Buggy Baggage Claim. If you're lucky, you can hop in and the horse will take you to your hotel too. Goodbye!
Bye!
Well, with that, I will pass things over to Jaya. I don't know what you want me to say.
No, I feel like you just be like, good challengers, guys.
I don't know how to not be weird. I've become weird.
You've become weird.
Hang on. Hey.